Hi guys. So before we get started reading today, we're going to need two things. You're going to need to go and get a piece of paper and a pencil with an eraser on it. So pause the video while you go and get these two things. And when you're ready, hit the play button. All right, now that we have our supplies, I want you to take a moment and think about everything you have learned about insects so far. I want you to think about how they go through metamorphosis, the different body parts they have, and how they help the environment. So take a second to think about everything you've learned about insects. Reflecting on what you've already learned will help you notice certain things in the book that we are reading today. This book is going to teach us about honeybees, which are insects. After we read, you will be able to describe the life of a honeybee and explain the different jobs that they have. This is a nonfiction book, which means that we need to identify what the topic of the book is, and we need to keep a lookout for the key details that explain the topic. We also want to make sure we look at the illustrations very closely because they might help us understand what the author is trying to teach us. So before we read, I'm going to explain some new vocabulary words that we are going to run into. Our first vocabulary word is cell. A cell is a hexagonal or six-sided shape in a honeycomb. They are made from beeswax, and you can think of them like rooms in a building. Our second vocabulary word is actually two words. It is scientific name. Scientists give animals scientific names so they can talk to each other so they can talk to other scientists that speak different languages, and they can share information about the animals that they're studying. So you can identify scientific names because they are written in italics and they have two parts to them. So this one is Apis mellifera. Another interesting thing about scientific names is they are Latin, which is an old language that isn't spoken anymore, but it is the root of many words that we use today. Our third vocabulary word is nursery. A nursery is a room where babies are kept and cared for. And our last vocabulary word is comb. A comb is a group of hexagonal wax cells built inside of a hive. So if these cells are like rooms, then the honeycomb is like the building. Now, when I look at the cover of this book, the first thing that I notice is the title written in very large font, and it says honeybee. Another thing I notice is there's a very large illustration of a honeybee. This tells me that this book is going to teach us something about honeybees. Now, the second thing I notice is the subtitle, and it reads, The Busy Life of Apis mellifera. Now, Apis mellifera, if you notice, it has two parts, and it's written in italics. This makes me think that Apis mellifera might be a scientific name of the honeybee. And I just remembered the word apis sounds a lot like another word I know, apiary. An apiary is the place where beekeepers keep their honeybees so that they can go and collect their honey. So I am very confident in saying that Apis mellifera is the scientific name of a honeybee. So now that I know that the topic of this book is going to be the busy life of Apis mellifera, it makes me wonder what honeybees do that make them so busy. So as we're reading, I'm going to pause at certain points and show you some things on this anchor chart behind me. Let's go ahead and start reading and see if we can figure out why honeybees are so busy. Okay. One summer morning, deep in the nest, a brand new honeybee squirms, pushes, chews, through the wax cap of her solitary cell and into a teeming, trembling flurry. Can you find the brand new honeybee? There it is, still climbing out of its hexagonal wax cell. And I don't know if you can see this, but that honeybee looks kind of gray compared to all the yellow honeybees around it. I wonder if the illustrator did that on purpose. Tongues lick, antennae touch, bodies clamor and scramble over thin wax comb. The new bee rests, soft, fuzzy, and female, like all newly emerged worker bees. Her scientific name is Apis mellifera, or Apis for short. So we were right, Apis mellifera is a honeybee's scientific name. Crawling to a cell packed with sticky, rich pollen, Apis eats and eats and eats some more. Her wings dry. Her color darkens to a warm yellow-orange. Her muscles grow strong. Strong enough for flying? Not yet. Cleaning comes first. Apis's first job is to tidy the hive's nursery. She hauls away leftover bits, carts off old wax caps, leaves each cell ready for a new bee egg. When she turns 3 days old, special glands behind her face swell and expand. Soon, she is ready for her next job, flying. All right, you guys, so we just heard about our first key detail to the topic of why honeybees are so busy. Her first job is cleaning the hive's nursery. So her job would keep her pretty busy. So that's a key detail. And remember, a nursery is where babies are kept and raised. So on this anchor chart, I put a picture of a mop and a bucket here to remind us that her first job is to clean the nursery. It's very important that we remember our key details. So we'll keep looking back at our anchor chart to remind us of the key details we learn. So is she ready for flying? Not yet. Nursing. The grub-like larvae get all of her attention. She checks them, inspects them, feeds them a milky sweet liquid made with those glands. On Apis's 8th day of life, she leaves the nursery. For flying? So we just had our second key detail for why Apis mellifera are so busy. She's nursing the larvae, which is another way of saying she takes care of the larvae. So over here, I have a picture of a mother changing a baby's diaper to remind us that she takes care of the larvae. Okay, so we found our first two key details. Not yet. Queen tending. Long and graceful, the queen glides across the combs. 2,000 times a day, the queen stops to drop a single egg into a single cell. Pearly white, half the size of a grain of rice. Each will grow into a bee. The queen doesn't have time to take care of herself. So Apis and the others groom her with their forelegs, examine her with their tongues, feed her a drop of sweet brewed food, from worker mouth to queen mouth. As they do, they pick up the queen's scent with their antennae, legs, tongues. They pass this scent along to the rest of the nest, a message that the queen is healthy and safe. When Apis turns 12 days old, glands in her abdomen begin making flakes of white wax. It is time for her new job, flying. All right, so a third key detail for why Apis mellifera are so busy is she is queen tending, which is another way of saying that Apis is taking care of the queen. So over here, we have a picture of a crown to help us remember that Apis takes care of the queen. Not yet. Comb building. Using her wax, her sharp spoon-shaped jogs, and her legs, she shapes, molds, maneuvers to create cells. But Apis is not a builder for long. 3 days later, she starts flying. And this was our next key detail. She's busy comb building. That would keep her so busy. So of course that's a key detail. So we put a picture of a hammer down here, and it says, build the comb. This will help us remember what her fourth job is. She ready for flying? Not yet. Food handling. Apis stands on soft honeycomb waiting. A forager bee approaches, dusted with pollen and smelling of sunshine and fresh air. She is loaded with nectar, food for the colony. Apis creeps toward her. Furry heads bump. The forager brings the nectar into her mouth, sticking out her straw-like tongue. Apis sips up the nectar. She folds and unfolds, folds and unfolds, folds and unfolds her mouth until the nectar grows thicker, stickier. She stores the half-dried nectar in an empty cell. Over the next few days, it will ripen into honey. When Apis turns 18 days old, she is ready to start her life outside. Flying? Okay, so our fifth key detail for why Apis is so busy is she is food handling. And we just learned that that's how she makes honey. So up here, I put a picture of a chef to remind us that Apis makes honey, and that keeps her very busy. All right, so if she's starting her life outside, maybe she's flying. Not yet. Guarding against birds or bears and bees from other nests. Patrolling a tiny patch by the hive's entrance, Apis sniffs each incoming worker bee with her antenna. Friend or foe, 2 bees hover nearby. Apis bends her antennae toward them and tests the air. They do not smell like members from her colony. She stands up on her hind legs. They do not act like members of her colony. Apis lets off an alarm to warn the others. Robber bees! They've come to steal honey from the nest. Apis flings herself at one of them. The 2 grab hold of each other's legs. They curl their abdomens. They roll and grapple. Apis buzzes, bites, burrows. She is willing to give up her life to protect her nest and its honey. She bites harder. Shaking her off, the robber bee flies away. Oh my goodness, that was so intense. I'm so glad Apis is okay. She did such a good job defending her hive. And that is our next key detail. Something that keeps her very busy is she is guarding the hive. So we have a picture of a shield here to help us remember this key detail. Let's see what happens next. At last, on the 25th day of her life, with the sun just rising and the dew still drying, she leaps from the nest and flying. There she goes. She's flying finally. Let's see what she does while she's flying. Thousands of other bees rise from the nest too, first to orient themselves and then to forage for water or collect the sticky plant sap called propolis, a kind of bee glue, or gather pollen. And Apis? She's in search of sweet nectar. Her antennae taste the breeze, milkweed, coneflower, clover. She can smell the sugary goodness inside their blossoms. Apis follows the floral odor for miles, wings beating 200 times a second until... So this one told us our next key detail. It was a little harder to find this one because the author told us what all the other honeybees are doing. But down here in the second to last sentence, the author told us that Apis is in search of sweet nectar. Since we've been following Apis this entire time, that tells me that this is our key detail. So down here, we have a picture of a treasure map. This treasure map will help us remember that Apis is trying to find nectar. She circles down. She alights on a blossom. She scrambles over its petals, searching for nectar inside. Poking her long tongue deep inside the flower, she sips and swallows and skips to the next flower. The sugary fluid does not go in her belly. It goes into a special sac called a honey stomach. This is how Apis will carry her nectar home. As she visits each flower, grains of pollen stick to her brushy body. They cling to her bristly legs. She carries this pollen from flower to flower, brushing it off, picking it back up, pollinating the field. At last, her honey stomach weighs almost as much as she does. Then, wings working hard, she flies back to the hive, where she gives up her nectar to a food handler. Now will she rest? No, she will dance. Wagging her tail, Apis circles to the left, then to the right. She runs in a long straight line. Other bees gather around. They listen to the vibrations of her dance. She is telling them the nectar is sweet. She is asking them to go there too. Soon a stream of bees head for her find. Apis makes 9 more trips that day, gathering, pollinating, before the sun finally sets and she can rest. So her 8th and final job is dancing to give directions. That is so cool. I didn't know honeybees did that. So down here in our last little spot, we have a picture of a guy dancing to remind us that she dances to give directions. Let's see what else happens. But she will go back tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. She grows thinner and slower. She loses her hair. Her wings fray and tatter. Summertime bees do not live long, and Apis is now 35 days old. She has flown back and forth between nest and blossoms, 500 miles in all. She has visited 30,000 flowers. She has collected enough nectar to make 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. Her work is done. On the morning Apis drops to the ground, the air is warm. The sun is rising, and the nectar is sweet. She rolls to her back. Her legs move limply. Her wings beat weakly. Above her, blossoms nod in the summertime breeze. Apis stills. And back in the nest, a brand new honeybee squirms, pushes, chews through the wax cap of her solitary cell and into a teeming, trembling flurry. Hum. Does this look and sound familiar to you guys? That's how they started the story. That was a really emotional ending. I feel sad that Apis died, but I'm happy that another honeybee was coming out of its cell. I thought it was really interesting how the author and illustrator started the story, or ended the story the same way that they started it. I learned a lot from this book about this topic. I had no idea that bees were so busy. We learned a lot of key details today about their jobs. So I want you to take a second to think about all the different jobs that we've learned about. There were 8 of them in total. So go ahead and pause this video while you try and remember all 8 of the honeybee's jobs. And once you're done, hit the play button so we can continue. So Apis's jobs were cleaning the nursery, taking care of the larvae, taking care of the queen, building the comb, making honey, guarding the hive, finding nectar, and dancing to give directions. All right, it's time to put your new knowledge to the test with a really fun activity. So get your paper and your pencil that we got at the beginning of this video. Before we start, you're going to need to fold your paper like a hot dog. Go ahead and fold your paper like a hot dog, and it will look like this. All right. And then you're going to fold the hot dog in half so it looks like this. And then when you open it up, your paper is going to be divided into 4 even sections. All right, so great job, you guys. Now I need you to put your paper down on your desk like this. Normally you do it like this, but this time we want it to go a long ways left and right. So put your paper down on your desk just like that. Okay. So for this activity, we're going to pretend to be a honeybee, and we're going to fill out an application for 3 jobs so that the queen bee will hire us. So we're going to start by writing our name in the top left section up here so the queen bee knows who we are. So go ahead and take a second to write your name in the top left section. Okay. And then you're going to choose your 3 favorite jobs that honeybees do. In each of these sections, you are going to draw yourself as a honeybee working the jobs. All right. So you're going to need to fill in as much detail as possible so that the queen bee will hire you. So you're going to put your first job up here, your second job down here, and your third job over here. Okay. So for instance, if you chose nursing the larva to be your first job, you're going to put it up in this section. And to show the queen that you're qualified for this job, you're going to add a lot of detail. So here you can see where I drew the cell, the larvae is down in the cell, and here I am up here nursing the larvae. I am feeding it honey drops, and you can see the little larvae is going, yum. So because of all the details I added in this, it's pretty likely that the queen bee is going to want to hire me to nurse the larvae. So you're going to pick 3 of your favorite jobs and you can draw yourself doing them. Okay. And once you're done, your paper is going to look something like this. Your application is ready to go for the queen. And then I want you to go show your guardian or friends your application and tell them what you really liked about these 3 jobs in particular. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put our anchor chart up here in case you need help remembering all of the jobs so you can choose your 3 favorite jobs. I had a really good time learning about honeybees with you, and I hope you enjoyed this book as much as I did. I'm going to go ahead and step off the camera now, and I want you to pause the video so that you can see our anchor chart in the background. I can't wait to read with you guys again. Have a good day. All right, go ahead and pause the video now.